Hi, Darul. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Tarun?
Yeah, sir, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. Okay. So, what I said, char is this is fixed length data type, and varchar2, this is variable. Var stands for variable. And what do we mean by fixed length and variable length? That we have seen yesterday. Okay, with example. So this is a structure. There is one more difference. I will explain that. Okay, let me create a table again. Okay, so let me create one more table. So I say create table and anything. Say I say test anything, test data, anything is. So I just want to show you difference between varchar2 and char. So say this is a column one, and this is your varchar2. Okay, and I say two, only two, and this is column two. And here, see what I'm saying. I have not given any size, just char. And this you can do only for char. Because if you try to do the same thing, say, okay, here I don't give this. Here also, column one, column two, create table test one. Sorry, there's one more problem here. Comma is missing. So, but it is not possible. You have to give size for varchar. It is mandatory. Okay, so but if you don't give size for, I will show you. So here it is mandatory. See, I have given one size for column one, but column two I have not given any size. This char. It is mandatory to give size for varchar two, but for char you can write like that, and by default, if you don't mention the size, it will automatically take one size, one character. Okay, however, it is not a big difference, but it is also a difference. Okay. Now, yesterday I told you there are certain advantages, disadvantages of using varchar and char. Where you will use varchar, where you will use char. Okay, so whenever we have some code, if you say, I will say, for example, you have to enter pin code. So you know pin code is always like how many digits we have for pin code? 6 digits. Okay, so length is fixed. If I say your Aadhaar card number, okay, it is also having a fixed length always. So there are passport number, it is a fixed length. So there are many values in real life that is having fixed length size. So if you are dealing with any of those kind of values, then you use char. Okay, so say always it will be 10 only. We will use char. Okay, but if like say name, address, description, something that can have 10 characters, maximum it will be 30, but it can be 8, 10, 20, 15, 18 like that. Size will change. The value of data value size will change. Then we will use varchar2. Okay, if we use char, advantage is when you write a query and you put that value, character type data into the condition in the where clause, it retrieves data much faster. So what I mean, say if I say supplier. So this is the data we have. Here we have both character and varchar2. And if you use like this, say from supplier where, so which column is char type? Say address, it is char type. Use address equals to something, some value, Pune. So if we are using char type in the condition, retrieval of data will be much faster because it is only 4 characters we have, but we have blank space. The size is fixed. So it retrieves much faster than varchar2. And if you use varchar2, advantage is that you are not wasting the space. Now here, if you see Chennai, Pune, Calcutta, only 3 records. So what is the size of data? 10 plus 10 plus 10, 30, total 30. Okay, but if you see CS, what is the size? 4 plus 4, that is 8, and here this is 6. So 14. So in order to store these 3 values, I need only 14 bytes, whereas here I need 30 bytes. So we are wasting space. If this was the scenario, if this is the type of data we wanted to store, I don't need, oh, sorry, it is 20, so it is more wastage. Here we are using 60, okay? But here, whatever is given, size is only that much. So it is still 14 only. So see how much for just only for 3 records, how much space we are saving. And if we have million of records and we have created a structure like this, it is char type, but size is not consistent. And how much space we are wasting. Okay, so there are pros and cons of using varchar2 and char. Okay, so we have to consider those things. Now, see the way date is stored. Date, the default type for date is always DDMONYY. This is a default type. Okay, so while you store, say if I want to store the values, again I'm saying insert into supplier values. I say I already given 4. Then I say name. Then you say uh, take some values, city name, and date type will be, as I said, it will be DDMON. So I say March, and then you can give, I said like this, 2020. So I have stored values like this. But when you query, see, if you query, see how it is displaying. Okay, you have given value like this, it displays like this, TDM1YY. But if you want to see the complete format, complete value, then you have to use some format. Uh, you have to use a function that is called toChar, or you can change the default date format. So alter session. So there are many ways of changing the default date format, but it will be changed only for the session. Or you can say select toChar reg date, and then you can use any other format. So I can say I want like this day mon comma y. It will display data value in this format. Okay. So, but by default date format is this. When you input or you display, it will take the default date format. You have option to change it. Okay. So when you create the table, you decide what is the name of the table, what are the column names, what are the data type, and one more thing we decide using constraint that even though say I say, for example, I say, you see here we have two columns having not null and not null. So I can say supplier number, data type is number, but at that number also we are putting some restriction. Okay, so it may be not null means it is not blank. You cannot leave. This is mandatory. These are mandatory columns. So in this table, these two are mandatory columns. Means you cannot have a value in this table where supplier number is not having any value, supplier name is not. All the records will have minimum supplier number, supplier name, address and registration date can be null. And if you try to highlight that, it will not allow you. So what I mean that here, I can say here I have null values and here also I can have null value. Okay, but if first column is primary key, it will not accept this value, duplicate value. So let me show you first. This is acceptable. But if you try to recreate, see, I'm trying to insert the data again, same value, and it's saying unique constant violated because there is a primary key and I cannot give same value for the supplier number. So again, it is numeric, it will accept number value, but it will not accept all the numbers. It will accept the unique numbers. Okay, similarly, if I change the value for supplier number and I try to give null value for the name, again it will not accept because name is a mandatory column. See, okay, I'm trying to insert. This is unique now. This value does not exist in the table, but all three columns I am giving null. So these two are okay. But second column value cannot be null because it is a mandatory column. So there are certain restrictions on the data as well. And those restrictions are called constraint. So we can have a unique constraint as you can see here. Also we can have, before that we got an error that says duplicate value. Cannot insert duplicate value, you see here. Where is that? Unique constraint. Okay, that was for duplicate value. And then now we got cannot insert null. So this is what the mandatory column. Like this, we have few more constraints that we will discuss. Okay, so today we are going to talk about the constraints. So we have constraints, as I said, primary key. So can anybody define what is the meaning of primary key? So primary key is a column. If somebody is asking you definition is very simple. A column or group of columns. So primary key can be one column or group of columns used to decide the uniqueness of the data or uniqueness of the record or uniqueness of the entity. Okay. So if one column is good enough, that is your primary key, or that can be a candidate for a primary key. If multiple columns are required, then multiple columns becomes a candidate key for the primary key. Now suppose this is the data. Let's see the data. Okay. Now tell me, now you can see here, if I write like this query from supplier where supplier name equals to Kamal, how many records I will get? Two records, correct? So now having this name Kamal as a supplier name in two records, this is possible or this is not possible? Tell me. This is possible or not possible?
Possible, sir.
It's possible, correct? It's not something that is impossible. In a class also, we can have two students by the same name. It is quite possible. We can have supplier from the same location. So Chennai, right now, none of the address are repeated here, but it is possible that we have multiple people from Pune. Okay, it should not be coincidence. Like right now, if I say where address equals to Pune, what will happen? See, I get only one record, but this is just coincidence. Okay, I can have another supplier from the same city and then I will get another record. I can have again another supplier from the same city. I will get, if I write this condition, I will get three records, four records. But something that cannot have duplicate value, what I am expecting, if I say supplier number, it should always give me only one value. Correct? It is not possible that one supplier number gives me multiple record. If it is happening, then I have some problem with the data. So supplier number is a key here that can become primary key. However, I have already made a primary key here. So before you create a table, you have to take a decision that which column or which group of columns can be my primary key. And then using the syntax, you will implement it. Yeah, first, you have to take a decision and then you have to make sure how you are going to implement that. Is it possible? Do we have a technology? Does Oracle or any other database support primary key? Conceptually, things may occur, things may exist, but then we should be able to implement it also. Okay, so we know that in Oracle database we can have primary key. Okay, we can create a table. So what we have already done, I'm again showing you. So I can say create table. Say I say supplier master. Then I say, okay, I have a column supplier number, and the supplier number data type is number. Size will be say 3, and then I say constraint. Okay, constraint, and I say supplier master pk, and this is my primary key. Now the constraint name, this part is not mandatory. Well, you can just write primary key, that is also fine. Okay, so what will happen if you write? If you don't write, I will show you. So let me add one more name. So supplier city. So most of the supplier cities are from Bangalore. Well, I can give a data type here. Varchar2. Most of the supplier cities are from Bangalore. So I can say default city name is Bangalore. Say Bangalore. This is default. Okay. Say supplier capacity. Anything like how much uh, maximum item or maximum value item I can ask supplier to say max cap. This is number. And I can say max cap should be maximum 100. Say supplier. So just like I said max cap, I can have min cap also. Supplier max cap should be less than 2000. So all these are what? All these are constraints. However, default we don't consider, but it can be used as a constraint also. Now, if you create a table like this, you see the structure, none of these things will be visible. And now we are coming back to the same thing. How do we see the constraints that we have created? Because tomorrow I may forget, or tomorrow some other person is going to work on this table. They will not know that these are the constraints on supplier master. Then again, you have to take help of these two tables, user underscore constraints and describe user underscore cons underscore columns. Sorry, these two tables. Okay, so if you query now, say, I say constraint type from user underscore constraints where table name, you know the table name for which you are looking for. Table name equals to what? Supplier master. So it will give you type of constraint that we have. Supplier on the supplier master. So we have primary key. P is of primary key, C is for check. Okay, but as I said before, this will not show you which column is your primary key. Okay, so you can display two things here, constraint type and constraint name as well. So you see the name. So whatever name we have given, that will appear here. If you remember, see, this is the, if you remember supplier M, PK, that was your primary key. And here I have not given any constraint name. So system will give a name. If I would have not given, system would have given, but I have named the constraint. So it will display my name. Wherever I have not given, it will display like this. So these are the constraint names. Now you query from another table. So say select constraint name, then you say column underscore name from user underscore, sorry, user underscore cons underscore columns where table name will remain same. So both from the both table you query for the same table. What was the table name? Supplier master. SUPPMASTR. So here if you see, it will give you, see here, this constraint. Okay, that is on. So this is the column name, correct? So you have column name, supplier number. Okay, and this is another column. So this constraint is for this supplier max cap and supplier max cap. See, this is the check constraint. 733. 733 is on this column. So you have check constraint on this column. And this is a primary key, SUPPMPK. This is on supplier number. So supplier number is your primary key. We can write a join query also, but right now I have not written because we have not discussed. So in order to know what are the constraints on a table, whether there is a primary key or there is no primary key, whether there is a check constraint, you have to query from these two tables, user constraints and user constraints columns. Okay, for the same table, then you will get complete information. But if you see the structure, it will just display, it will not say it is primary key or not. In order to confirm, you have to query from this two table. Okay, but everything is stored in the database. And now, since we have given a constraint, so SUPP master, if you see here, you try to insert value, see how it becomes insert into supplier master. And here you say, this is your supply number. This is your SUP, PCT, I'm giving a value, then you say SUP max cap. Okay, so max cap, it should be less than 2000. That is what I have given. So you cannot give a value. So I say this is my supplier number. City, I say Pune. Default value is Bangalore. So we will see that how it comes. But if I give a value that is more than 2000, it will not take this value. But this is another error. Insert into supplier master SUPPNO. SU. Okay. It is only one P. SUPNO. SUPNO. Okay. See now, see which constraint it is violating. It is violating 733. Check constraint. Because we have defined that value should not exceed 3000. It should be less than 3000, sorry, 2000. So not sure if it was less. I think it was less than. So it will not accept this value also. 2000. It should be less than 2000. So less than 2000, any value is acceptable up to 199. If you see now, see, it is fine. 1000 is acceptable. Okay. How default comes into the picture. So if you don't give value for the city, then only default value will be considered. So I gave first value as Pune, but suppose I am not giving any value for the city, then what will happen? See, in this case, sorry, in this case, I have not given any value. I have given just two, and that is supply number and max cap. Now, if you see the data, so star from SUPP master. See, I have not given any value here for city. It automatically takes Bangalore. Why? Because Bangalore was the default value specified when we created the table. So here we created a table. Come back to the definition of the table where we created. Insert into. So here we created a table. So we said default for supplier city. So when we don't give value, if you give value, whatever value you will give, it will take. But if you don't supply value, then default will take automatically Bangalore. Similarly, for this column, max cap, we said max cap should be less than 2000. So any value which is equal to 2000 or greater than 2000 is not acceptable, and that we have seen. So when you practice these concepts, you try with a value that is violating the definition of the table and then see whether it is acceptable or not. Any doubts so far? Any doubts?
Doubt. No doubt, sir.
Okay. Now, if you have an existing table and you want to change the definition of the table, you want to alter the table, you want to add new columns, you want to modify certain data types. So you have a command that is called alter table, and there are many options. But these commands, as I said before also, alter table, add, if I want to add a new, say, I will say pin code number. So I'm changing the definition of a table and I added a new column. Okay, so if I say now, say one column got added along with this. So already there was some data. What will happen now? You see the data, there was some data you added. So for the existing data, this column will have null value. You see, because when I inserted these values, this column was not there. Okay, so one thing that we can do, we could have done, so say pin code one number, and you can say default. If I do like this, say default say something like this. And then you see here, do you see? So here no default was added. It created the column but added null. But if we created with a default, now say there were 10,000 records. So we can give a default value for the newly added columns by using this default. Okay, otherwise I have to update here separately. Okay, there's another advantage of default. Okay, so you can practice this concept. This and these things is not like something that happens very frequently. Nobody will tell you in the beginning to do these things because this kind of things requires a lot of discussion. You are changing the structure of a table. So if you modify, if you add a new column, if you drop a column, if you create a new table, there are major impact. That is the reason nobody will tell you in the beginning to go with these things. Okay. Now, uh, how do I update these existing? If you want to change any data, then you have to update the table. So you, what is the statement? You say update table name master, and then you can say set. So set column one equals to this, column two equals to this, like that. So I can say here, say set pin code. It could be any value, say this value. I want to change value for another column, say pin code one, that is another value. And whenever you update, you always give condition. And if you don't give condition, what will happen? It will change all the data. See, two rows got updated. Okay. So give value, say set uh, supplier city equals to Chennai. But for which data you are changing the city? Okay, so you say where supplier number be specific, and same rule applies for delete. Now I said supplier number two, so it will modify value only for this. So whenever you use update or delete, make sure you are updating the right data or you are deleting the right data. Otherwise, it is going to impact all the data. There's a huge impact. So if you have millions of records will get updated instantly. Okay, so before you write update, make sure whatever condition you are using. So suppose I wanted to update this. So I have to make sure I am going to update correct record. So how can I make sure? I'll query that data using the same condition that I'm going to use in the update or delete. Okay, so I will say supplier number equals to 2. I got one data. I will make sure, okay, this is the data you want to change? Yes. Then instead of select, you write update and put the same condition. Same thing for delete. You first make sure you write a query, you put the condition and you get the right data. Same condition you put in update or delete. Otherwise, you will end up in updating or deleting wrong data. Is that clear? Okay. So we don't have time. We have only 5 minutes. Any doubts anybody's having?
No, sir. Right now there are many doubts.
Okay, fine. So from tomorrow onwards, we will start working on select statement mainly, the query side, and there are many forms of select statement that we will see. So we can like say when you write a query, you can write a query basic. The most basic select statement is you give select, you give one column name, and you give from and one table name supplier. This is the most simple statement to write. Give correct column name, one column name from table name. This is a minimum. you have to do in order to write. You have option to mention multiple column names, but whatever column name you write here, say I wrote city from supplier master, it will search this column name into this table. If it is not there, it will give you error. So you can write multiple columns. See, I'm writing a query now. Select, I say E name, I say D name, I say location, I say salary. Okay, from EMP. It says location. Okay, so where is location? It gave error in location. Maybe there are other errors also. But the moment I say, I can write like this. You see, select list of columns from list of tables. So whatever you write in the place of column, those should be a valid column name existing in these tables. As long as that location is part of either EMP or DPT, does not matter. It is fine. Salary should be either here or here. But you should not write anything here that does not exist in this list. So here now, if I remove again department, see why it is saying location? Because location is not in EMP table. Here I have not given any join. Join will come later on. Now, if I want related data together, then I will write a join. Otherwise, this is also a valid select statement. It makes a different type of join that says cross join. So the most basic select statement is select list of columns from list of table. Minimum one column name, minimum one table name is required. Okay, so you should have a valid column name, you should have a valid table name, and then you use the syntax. You are done. But based on the requirement, we try to display data. We know what we want, but how to get that output? If I give you 10 records and ask you simple question, you will able to tell me, okay, this is what you want. But I want that data using query. And it will be not 10 records, it will be 10 million records. And then you cannot tell me manually, this is what you want. So we don't write a query for few records or 100 records or 1,000 records. We write a query for million of data available in the database. So go and fetch the relevant data from million of records, and that cannot be done manually. Okay, so we'll continue with that in the next class. So that's all for today. Make sure
So kindly
everybody.
provide the notes and
Yeah, I will share
recordings.
today. I will share today. So you can just put your email ID, whosoever has not given, in group chat. You put your email ID, and whatever I have got email ID, I will share the notes with them, recordings. Okay.
So thank you, sir.
Okay. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you, sir.